Hello and welcome back to Bookish and welcome to my Saturday Hodgepodge, my weekly wrap-up of all things books, booktube, bookish stuff, anything else that I want to talk about. I thought I'd start off this week by talking about what I've been reading. As you know, if you saw my Saturday Hodgepodge last week, I am reading a part of the Transgirl April readathon, read-along, and I have gotten started on that and I'm off to what I consider to be a great start. You know, if you follow my channel, you know I'm not a particularly fast reader, but I did finish one of my books. This was one of the group read books. It was called Felix Ever After by Kacen. Callender. It is a YA book, and I listened to it as an audiobook performance through the Libby app, and I really enjoyed it. You know, I don't read a lot of YA, don't listen to a lot of YA audiobooks, but this immediately kind of in a relatively safe way threw me back into the mindset of someone in their teenage years, growing up and dealing with all the problems of friendship and insecurities and love. Only in this case, the main character, Felix, is a trans youth, a non-binary person who really is still exploring, you know, exactly who they are, who they want to be, how they want to be identified, whether or not, dealing with issues of whether or not they're lovable, dealing with issues directly related to their trans status, with people questioning, you know, the idea that they are in fact a boy when they say they're a boy, being exposed in all kinds of awful ways. There is a lot of, you know, teenage angst here, but there's also a lot that I think would, there's a lot of information which, you know, I'm completely foreign to me about the trans experience of growing up, but there's also a lot here that's just about the experience of growing up and dealing with the things that, you know, people have to deal with, and then on top of that, the thing that trans youth have to deal with. And I thought it was really lovely. I enjoyed listening to it. It's about an 8-hour listen. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed, you know, getting into the mind and seeing a perspective that isn't my own. And I know that this is one of those books that is fairly commonly banned, and I have to be honest with you, that is just an absolute travesty. The characters in this book use what my grandparents used to call off-color language, and there's a lot of it. And the characters in this book do engage in normal teenage activities like drinking and smoking marijuana. I felt like an old person just saying that. But those kind of activities which are not uncommon among young people and which are represented in lots of other books that young people have access to, not to mention movies and television shows young people have access to. So clearly the only reason this book is banned is because it deals with a young trans man and his problems and his gender issues and his trying to come to terms with all of that, which is a shame because this is the exact kind of book, I think, because again, I don't know, I think if I were a young trans person, this is the kind of book that I would find comfort in, that I would find solace in, that I would be able to connect to, which would make me feel like there was a solution, that I was worthy of love and being loved, and that I could, and be recognized for who I am. And I just thought it was great for all those reasons. It's the exact kind of book I think should be available to teenagers through school libraries. So I did finish that book. I also started reading The Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon, which I am enjoying. I won't go into very much now, but it is a science fiction, kind of dystopian science fiction novel, which is not something I read ordinarily. And so that's taken some adjustment, but you know, I am enjoying it. It is really interesting the way in which Solomon has laid out the story so that we are discovering the story as we go along and discovering things about the world as we go along. I think it's really well done. And so for that reason, I am really liking it. I also started reading Trans Like Me, kind of a book of essays by C.N. Lester, in which they kind of lay out the some of the basics, I think, about being trans. It's written, I think, to provide solace, comfort, information to trans people, something they can identify with, but it also feels like, for me, it has provided me with some background information, some knowledge, some education on the issues faced by trans people and how to kind of combat anti-transness with this information. And for me, that's really valuable. Like I said, I'm about halfway through. I find the essays to be very well written, clear, relatable, and powerful and moving. So, I'm enjoying that as well. The one thing I'm not enjoying so far is my buddy read of Don Quixote with Joe Renee from Joe Renee Reads by Cervantes. This is one of those books I put on my list of books I will never read. And then, Joe Renee offered to buddy read it with me, and we decided to read the first half. You can see where my yellow bookmark is, and you can see where the bookmark is to show how far I've gotten it. I'm on page 95. By the time you're watching this, I should be to the 1/4 mark. And at that point, Joe Renee and I are going to decide whether we want to continue the buddy read. She's been great. Enjoyed sharing, brief kind of Voxer messages with her about the book, and I think we're pretty much of the same mind about it right now. It's not that it's not enjoyable from time to time, or it's not that it's not even occasionally funny. It's that I just have a hard time, sticking with reading it. I have a hard time really caring about what's happening. And while I see the humor in it, oftentimes so far, the humor is kind of the same note over and over again. And that's becoming wearing. I'd hoped when Sancho Panza became a character that things would pick up, but so far that hasn't happened for me. So I'm not sure I'm going to make it more than about page 120, but you will for certain know next week whether or not I continue on. But that's pretty much my reading for this week. I did want to draw attention, and I'm sure you're all aware of it, to what's going on in Tennessee. In the Tennessee state legislature, 2 young black men were essentially expelled from the Tennessee House of Representatives on a party line vote where Republicans kicked these 2 Democratic African-American young congressmen out of the Tennessee legislature for participating in a protest encouraging the passage of some kind of gun control by the Tennessee legislature, or at least opposing Tennessee's plans to remove even more restrictions on guns in the wake of the Nashville shooting. One of the things that's come out of the Nashville shooting that's related to Trans Girl April is that I see in a lot of social media, all of a sudden right-wing people seem to really care about who the shooters are, who the shooter was, and claiming that people on the left are ignoring the trans identity of the shooter because they were trans, because this is a part of the trans agenda to take over the United States of America, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. But the reality is, people on the left are standing up to get something done about the real issue, which is easy access to guns, and easy access to guns that have incredible killing power. And it's the people on the right, it is the Republican Party, who is attempting to stop those things from taking place. People on the left are saying the same thing we say after every one of these school shootings, after every mass shooting. Something has to be done to restrict people's access to guns, so that people who are suffering from mental illness can't just go out and buy a gun and harm large numbers of people. At the very least, something has to be done there. And here we see, in the case of the Tennessee legislature, them doing the exact opposite. Them doing everything they can to make guns more available, and then carrying out the incredibly fascist action of kicking 2 duly elected, democratically elected members of their legislature out for participating in a peaceful protest which took place in Tennessee. That is the height of fascism, and it is not a coincidence that the only 2 Democratic congressmen kicked out were 2 young African-American men, and the 3rd Democratic congressman, who was also in danger of being kicked out, a white woman in her 60s, was not actually removed. If you don't see the racism in that, if you don't see the sit down, shut up boy racism of that, then you are deluded about what's happening here in the United States of America. So I did want to make sure that I mentioned that. And right on the heels of me making another political statement, which is bound to, cost me a few subscribers and, garner a few negative comments, I did want to announce that I am starting a Patreon channel. I will leave a link to my Patreon channel down below. I have been thinking about doing this for almost 6 months, and I have hesitated for all kinds of reasons. But the simple truth of the matter is that I'm kind of following the philosophy of do what you love and the money will follow. I love making videos. I love talking about books. I do that on my channel. As you know, I have ads turned on. If you didn't know, I donate every dollar that I make, every bit of money I make from my YouTube channel, I donate to charity. Every time I get a new YouTube payment, a Google Ads payment, I pick a charity. Usually it's Houston Food Bank, sometimes it's others, and I donate that money. And that's really rewarding, and I don't want to change that. So I'm opening the Patreon channel as a way of kind of providing more of my bookish content for pay. So that if you want to subscribe, if you want to see more of what I have to say, more of my thoughts, more of my ideas about books, a few more videos a month, then you can subscribe to my Patreon. There are only 2 levels. There is the bookish backer level. Is a $1 level. At that level, I will mention your name or put your name on screen as one of my patrons, my Patreon channel, and you'll have access to kind of my vlog style posts, which are just text posts about things I've been thinking about. At the next level is the bookish booster level, which is the $3 level, and at the $3 level you'll get access to at minimum 2 extra videos a month. And that's where I'm leaving it right now, just the $1 and $3 levels. What I hope is that this money that I make from Patreon will help me buy a real filming camera so I can stop filming with the fish lens GoPro or with my phone, which I don't really like filming with. Maybe get a microphone so the sound quality goes up, and then just supplement my income to help my wife and I travel more in our retirement. So that's kind of what it's for. I'll leave a link to the channel down below. Anyway, there you go. That's my Saturday Hodgepodge for this week. I look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.